my own master, such a thing would be greater than all the magic and all the treasures in all the world. Calimshan, the land of wonders, is a rich realm that hides many secrets and fosters competing powers. Ancient lore lies buried here. Genie clans scheme and sabotage each other. Merchants, assassins, monsters, ancient relics, and cabals are as integral to Calimshan today as they are entwined in its history. Here, adventurers protect caravans traveling across the desert, quest for ancient mysteries, seek fame and fortune, collaborate with genies, and master potent magic. Calimshan is surrounded on three sides by water and relies on naval power for trade and security. Though desert takes up a third of its territory, Calimshan has many valuable resources. The forest of Mir grows cedar trees for shipbuilding. Quarries in the marching mountains mine precious stones. The seas provide pearls, seafood, and trade. At the center of everything is the fabulous city of Calimport, where people the world over come seeking rare goods, wealth, prestige, and opportunity. Calimport's gleaming temples attract countless worshippers and pilgrims, and its libraries are among the greatest in Faerun. While the highest authority within Calimshan is the ruling sultana, the most respected profession is that of a clever merchant. Calimshan relies on trade and innovation to maintain its status as one of the wealthiest and most inspiring nations in Faerun. Magic is ever present in Calimshan, and many citizens know a spell or two. Genies have influenced life in Calimshan for centuries, and people dwelling in the desert, steppes, forests, and mountains of Calimshan rely on elemental magic to survive. Legends of genies further Calimshan's reputation as a land of wishes and miracles. Calimshan's recent embrace of mechanical wonders, first imported from the island nation of Lantan and innovated on by Kalishite artificers and crafters, has transformed life in Calimport. Made of porcelain, the lightest woods, delicate metal, and canvas, these devices are used for everything from transportation and war to civil engineering and household chores. They allow Calimport and other cities to solve magical problems without relying on the genie's magic. Whether visitors take the long trek across the Calim Desert or sail into Calimport's walled harbour, they inevitably end up in the city's bazaars. There, the breezy, melodic tongue of Alzado intermingles with languages from across the realms. Dragonborn, gnomes, humans, and others barter over wondrous and mundane wares, negotiating the price of services big and small, licit and illicit. Though fiction to many, the realms is all too real for many of us, and making it all up has never been an option. Thus, I found myself waiting weeks for Elminster to bring lore for this project. Just as I'd given up hope of hearing anything on Calimshan or the Lake of Steam, I was awakened one night by a heavy bundle falling solidly onto my bed and me. Attached to the twine-bound oilcloth package was a tag of parchment in the old mage's unmistakable scrawl. When next you move 2,000 miles away from known locations, be so kind as to leave a forwarding address. You're not so easily found across two worlds, and I am an old man of middling patience. I will do my best. However, I will now say that Calimshan has a history hundreds of books thick. Therefore, I have taken it upon myself to discuss the history, past and present, interchangeably. With letters from the old sage himself, no less than 16 massive tomes, over a dozen parchment or vellum scrolls, and other maps of obvious southern work as true sources, I got to work. It's difficult enough to work from Realms Lore manuscripts, and the problems are compounded by Elminster's scribbles on everything. I warned Ed when he suggested giving the old mage sticky notes that it would only lead to trouble. Now every 400-year-old document is ragged with little yellow notes. Well, it beats the alternative. Magic mouth spells activating when you open a tome to a particular page. Finally, Dale and I condense the often long-winded texts and scattered sources into the work you have in your hands. Enjoy Elminster's more civil comments and the remaining materials culled from his sources. Within this packet, Chronicler, ye shall find copies or originals of tales to be remembered, Elder Days of Om, Empires of the Sands, the Phoenix Prophecies, A Slave's Life, Marches of the Calim, A Study of First Age Architecture, the Treatise on Lamps, Genies, and the Works They Wrought, and excerpts I deemed appropriate for the work at hand. Ye have been made custodian of some of my rarer books and scrolls, so that ye may educate fine folk about the Southlands. Mind them well, for I shall expect their safe return anon. Respect these works, but believe them fully not, as ye and many find one actual truth in all histories and compendiums. The writers or sponsors' agendas in creating the work. Even the monks in Candlekeep leave a mark of purpose that alters a story, be it an over-flourished letter or the excitement of lore deemed too lascivious for readers' eyes. Clean what you may and avoid more colourings of the facts over much. Elminster of Shadowdale, an author excised many a time. Before we proceed, let's be clear that Calimshan is not a nice place, and it holds many morally ill social attitudes. It actively supported slavery and sexism amid a plethora of other unenlightened cultural traits. The reprehensible attitudes of Calimshan are recorded here to provide a fully detailed slaving state, of which there are many examples in many planar worlds. Hopefully those who read this material will learn to hate Calishite slavers enough to send heroes out of their ways to bring their full efforts against them. The Kisar Shun would see his greatness reflected on the annals of history, and he would trust my humble hands to the task. May Ogma take my eyes if I am lacking in my duty to our mortal master, who graces us with his noble rule and wisdom, for it is my wish only to serve and record. In the name of the most holy great scrivener, I declare my tales to be true. Under his compassionate guidance, I can tell no lie, nor can I always tell the truth. My quill rushes at the bidding of the past and the present, though some would stop it from recording things unpleasant or mournful. Nay, he who gives us knowledge and our ways to keep it demands these things be known as much as those that give us joy. Question it, I do not, for I am but a humble scribe. The tale will be told, for it is not his will to allow knowledge to fall away from our minds in order to rot in the sun like spoiled dates fallen from a tree. Mualak Yindula in Abbas, scribe of the Kisar Amal Shun IV. The history of Calimshan reaches back almost 10,000 years. Epic poems describe the ancient forest of Keltamir, inhabited by elves and giants, and detail how humans and dwarves found their way into this region. These tales recount the arrival and rise of the Genies, describing their amazing feats, their many depredations, and their eventual fall. The lands along the Shining Sea have been dominated for the last 7 millennia by Calimshan. Even though the region around the Lake of Steam and its city-states are now independent, these areas are far easier to understand within the context of their long history under Calishite rule. Thus, history for the entire territory is broken down here by the dominant historical patterns established by Calimshan, which measure time in relation to the great imperial ages. These general overviews provide readers with the major aspects, achievements, and touchstones of each historical period and how it differed from the next. They also provide broad links between local happenings and other major events across Faerun's history. While Calimshan has had no fewer than 5 of its own distinct calendar systems tied to the various dynasties and empires of the past, all historical references are measured using Dale reckoning. The calendar system is used as a standard to facilitate cross-referencing times and events across the breadth of the realms, and between the past and the present. The lands of the Shining Sea have myths and legends that colour the cultural recollection of the times before recorded histories. Many of the current cultural and societal norms of Calimshan or the lands of the lions stem from the earliest of legends and oral stories, repeated across 8 millennia. Beyond the legends and the phoenix prophecies of the Abalaya, the best collection of prehistoric legends of Midwestern and Southern Faerun is Tales to be Remembered by Mualak Yendula Yin Abbas, Imperial Scribe to the court of His Imperial Majesty, Lord High Quisar Amal Shun IV. There are only 4 complete copies of this work still extant in the realms. They are located in the great libraries of Candlekeep, the Vault of the Sages, Herald's Holdfast, and the Great Caliph's Library in Calimport. This work is the basis for the legends recounted here, complete with the phoenix prophecies noted below. Because the lands now referred to as the Empires of the Shining Sea and their peoples have been in flux since time immemorial, very little is known or provable about their earliest histories. Legendary tales, by their very nature, are not usually accurately maintained, and therefore drift in content and scope to incorporate or accommodate changes in society and traditions. The greatest obstacle in understanding Calimshan's history is separating fact from prophecy and legend. Much of the lore has lost what original fact it contained due to the exaggerations of storytellers or the lapsed memories of the elders who pass it down. Centuries before the first cities ever rose in these lands, people were here, along with dragons, giants, elves, dwarves, and others whose ilk is long forgotten in the brightness of the current day. And even in these times, there were those of power who saw beyond the veil of time and the mortal world, speaking what became legends. Folk of the north speak highly of their Orlando the Seer and his many prophecies, upon which they have built their calendar. Among the southern lands, oracles have rarely been lacking, and some had even greater sight than the fabled seer of Candlekeep. The arcane prophets of Calimshan are known as the Abalaya. The history of Calimshan reaches back almost 10,000 years. Historians may never be totally certain of the origin of the Gen or their reasons for coming to Faerun, but when they came, they left their mark forever on the continent. Approximately 7,800 years before the Standing Stone was erected in Cormanthor, a large force of genies and their servants and slaves arrived in the region of present-day Calimport. Histories have muddled the distinction of exactly who the name Gen belonged to, and now it collectively refers to the immigrants of the Great Arrival. While it leads to some confusion among those sages tracing the origins of humanity, the Gen are equally the Jinn, the Jan, a select few Marids, and their halfling and human slaves. The fact that the ruling race of the burgeoning empire was the Jinn might explain the derivative collective terminology used for them and those over whom they ruled. It is uncertain whether the Gen came from the elemental plane of air or some other interim location. Some theorists from the burning lands of Zakara and learned scholars of the Herald's Holdfast posit that the Great Arrival may have been a temporal gate initiated from Zakara. These conclusions are based on some evidence linking early Kalishite clothing, architectural, and art styles to similar styles in Zakara approximately 500 years ago. The Gen slaves were smaller than the tall, broad-shouldered natives of the Calimshan region, and their skin tone was duskier than that of the native humans. These facts would also seem to support a migration from a place similar to Zakara, many of whose natives share those ethnographic traits. The reason for the Great Arrival has always been elusive. Calim, the genie, never recorded the reasons he led his people here, nor did the other genies of the realm speak of it. A legend among the Gen slave classes spoke of other worlds they had walked. On these worlds, the great Genie Lord had broken himself and others of his kind out of their magical bondage to wizards and fled. In revenge for their servitude, the genies now enslaved mortals, though they seemed to restrict themselves to races weak in magic and weaponry. To prevent their own recapture, Calim led his genie folk away and used artifacts to cast great magics that led them to another world, Faerun. The arrival of the Gens signaled the end of human freedom among the native tribes and the beginning of what would grow into one of the greatest empires Faerun would ever see. Within a few short months of their arrival, the Gen had constructed their first cities. The Calim Empire began before their first year on Faerun had ended. I will grace the desire many of you may have for a full recount of the Genies and their history in later tomes. But I know this, dear wanderer. The Genies have continued their symbiotic history within Calimshan, and I do not see that ever ending. Calimshan's diverse population includes Aasimar, dwarves, elves, genies, humans, and tieflings. In recent decades, dragonborn and gnomes have become especially common and risen to influential positions in Calimport and the genie courts. Of immediate historical import, though, are the Phoenix prophecies. The greatest of Abelea seers is known only as the Narisa, though to northerners he is far more famous as the Phoenix of Calimshan, from a loose translation of his name when the herald Sordrith recorded many of his prophecies over 400 years ago. The Narisa was an uncommon man from all accounts, his skin reddish and his hair as gold as the morning sun. His parents, siblings, and immediate children exhibited no such unique marks at birth, though some descendants have gained some of them in the centuries since then. From all accounts, verbal and written, the Narisa spoke rarely, but when his eyes blazed with fire, he would speak of times past and times yet to be with enough force that his words are believed to have shaped Calimshan as much as genies, magic, and the toil of humankind. While copies of the Herald Swordswreath's manuscript lie in libraries in Candle Keep, Calimport, Silvery Moon, Waterdeep, and elsewhere, the original manuscript volumes entitled The Phoenix Prophecies lie safely at Herald's Holdfast. This work is the first non-Kalashite recording of the prophecies, though it is a work compiled both from a contemporary Abelea's memories and a number of small, now lost sources that recorded earlier, slightly altered versions of the same prophecies. Still, for scholars across the realms, the Phoenix prophecies both instituted and predicted the great ages of Calimshan. In all, there are well over 8,000 separate Phoenix prophecies recorded in the Herald Swordswreath's 7-volume manuscript, though, aside from the Caliph Augures, most are of little interest to non-Kalashites. Among the volumes are predictions on events great and small, including major events impacting no less than 7 major religions. The Narisa predicted the deaths of 3 who would shake the world, and long afterward, this was confirmed with the deaths of Bane, Baal, and Mirkul. Chronicler, once again, ye have finagled materials out of my library, by your gracious barter of ales, cheeses unheard of in my realms, and fine cigars. Ye requested lore on the ever-shifting land of the ever-arrogant pashas known to ye as Calimshan, and here it be for good or ill. I saw thy manuscripts on the lands of Intrigue, cobbled together from King Hadrax and Count Gamelon's papers, and ye seem to have a good grasp of how these lands all interact. Now ye face the daunting task of winnowing truth from the amusingly biased annals of the previous Silpasha's court and more balanced and knowledgeable traveller's notes. Best of luck, young scribe. Aye, ye shall find the various tomes and traveller's notes on Calimshan and its environs informative, diverting, and somewhat sobering at times. I shall await your drafts and commentary from the Greenwood ere we trust this knowledge into the hands of waiting students of Faerun. And do take care to have more of that surprisingly tasty string cheese on hand when next I visit. The symbol likes its texture, and we should not deny her due, eh? Elminster, gourmand, and sage. When many think of Calimshan, they think of sand and silks, jewels and genies, slaves and slain rivals, and heat. The land of the 3 rivers, one of Calimshan's many long unused titles, is all these things and more. It is a land steeped equally in culture and corruption, in history and greed. Calimshan embraces a world of contrasts, as its rich are affluent beyond measure, just as its poor are destitute beyond belief. It is another world whose inhabitants embrace magic and education, but jealously guard them from those they deem unworthy. While confusing to outsiders, Calimshan and its people accept these seemingly contradictory values as life, and it is the outsider's place to learn how to adapt to the land of the Pashas rather than the alternative. Yi most likely opened this lecture to understand the magical as well as the intricacies of Calimshan. Before Volo tampers the scriptures with his embellishments, and we wouldn't wish that, would we? Let a humble hand guide your path to the Genies. Calimshan has always been a place of fantastic magic, and for centuries, genie overlords wielded that magic to rule over mortal servants. Even after the genies were overthrown, the rulers of Calimshan maintained the social structure imposed by the genies, albeit with themselves as rulers. But a generation ago, Sil Pasha Zengel rose to the throne. He discovered that a cabal of necromancers, known as the Twisted Rune, had been secretly directing Calimshan's fate for centuries. While Zengel sought out a powerful weapon to destroy the Twisted Rune, the cabal used the lure of arcane and royal power to convince Zengel's fourth son to assassinate him and the rest of the royal family. Only Zengel's fourth daughter, the young wizard Songal, escaped. With the aid of genies and her father's magic ring, Songal travelled to the floating towers of Magus Tor, where she claimed the Staff of Life and Death, a relic sacred to Calimport. She assembled an army of Dragonborn and shattered the power of the Twisted Rune in an evening called the Night of Fleeing Shadows. After claiming the position of Sultana, Songal outlawed slavery in Calimshan, enacted many popular reforms, and initiated building projects throughout the realm. She named a chief advisor, assisted by a council of lesser advisors. Over the years, dissatisfied nobles backed by foreign powers have rebelled, but Sultana Songal has defeated each such effort, emerging stronger than before. The genies of Calimshan divide into 4 competing factions. Efreet dwell in the desert city of Gosvakar, also called the Shimmering Oasis. Their eternal rivals, Marids of the Sea, dwell in the Coral Palace of Maransaya. Greedy Dao, in search of priceless gemstones, carved a city called Olympus Dag in the Marching Mountains. Finally, the benevolent Jinn float above the steppes in the cloud pavilions of Burin Bir. Genies are formed when an immortal soul merges with raw elemental energy. Most reside on the elemental planes, but for millennia, genies of all sorts built mighty empires in Calimshan. Those empires collapsed long ago, but genies linger here nonetheless. When Songal rose to power, she formed an alliance with the genies. Genies have integrated into daily life, founding cities and resuming their ancient rivalries. Each genie settlement in Calimshan is ruled by a few noble genies with the power to grant wishes, assisted by dozens of genies of lesser power who hold important offices. Elemental magic is everywhere in these settlements, mimicking the conditions of the elemental plane from which the genies come. Many citizens of these cities are native to other planes or have special abilities that make them well suited to the unique environment of a genie palace. For example, the sandy streets of Gosvakar are crowded with Azers, infernal tieflings, and dragonborn with a brass, gold, or red heritage, all of whom easily tolerate the city's extreme heat. Genie rulers treat mortal citizens in varying ways. Genasi, humanoids who trace their ancestry to the elemental planes, act as intermediaries between a city's population and genie rulers. Jinn enforce few laws, welcoming travelers from many lands and reveling in new experiences. Life in the married city of Maransaya is also relatively easy, as long as residents acknowledge married superiority and have a charming story to tell. But the mines of Olympus Dag groan with unfortunate people labouring on behalf of the Dao, and the Afriti rulers of Gosvakar are malevolent and cruel. The genie factions reluctantly acknowledge the supremacy of Sultana Songal. They largely avoid Calimport and don't interfere with the Sultana's agenda. Instead, they scheme against each other. They hire spies in the courts of their rivals, enrich their fabulous palaces in contests of extravagance, and humiliate each other in sporting and social events. Sometimes these rivalries spawn lightning-fast raids of extraordinary violence, but genies refrain from all-out war. Any serious disruption of daily life in Calimshan by a genie faction would draw the Sultana's ire, and she could bring 3 genie factions together to ruin the other. As genies returned to Calimshan, Sultana Songul felt her power threatened by genies' magic, which tamed the heat of the desert, brought forth water, conjured the world's richest treasures, and controlled the weather. Songul felt that, for her dynasty to survive, the people of Calimshan needed to be able to solve problems, both magical and mundane, without resorting to genies' magic. She found the solution in the imagination of a brilliant gnome inventor named Darian Kaya. Darian envisioned a world where ordinary people could rely on machines to solve everyday problems, where citizens of Calimshan were freed from repetitive labor and dangerous tasks. In the world of Darian's imagination, magical machines handled life's drudgery, leaving every individual free to pursue a life of creativity, education, and personal enrichment. But such miraculous machines wouldn't invent themselves. Darian had designs, but she didn't have the time, wealth, and workshop required to make these dreams a reality. This, however, is exactly what the Sultana offered to provide. Songul set Darian up with a workshop, assistants, and the raw materials and tools she required. Darian and her team presented the first prototype, Mechanical Wonder, a human-shaped construct she named Addo, at the Sultana's court a year later. Addo was a machine animated by magic, made of the lightest wood, its limbs connected with delicate silver joints, and its porcelain head adorned with lamp-like eyes. Addo couldn't speak, but it could obey instructions, delighting the Sultana with simple antics like running in place, juggling, and counting on its fingers. When one of the Sultana's courtiers nearly choked on a plum pit, Addo wrapped its arms around the choking victim, gave a short and sudden embrace, and popped the pit onto the table. Addo's debut was explosive. Within weeks, rival workshops organized to copy and improve on Darian's innovation. Within a few years, countless varieties of mechanical wonders were available, primarily in Calimport, but slowly spreading to other cities in the realm. In addition to human-like wonders like Addo, inventors designed small flying wonders capable of delivering mail and other packages, household machines to perform chores like cleaning and yard maintenance, and wonders that assisted with disabled citizens, replacing lost eyes or enhancing mobility. Calimshan's borders are the same as they have been since the fall of the Shun Imperium, nearly 1,000 years ago. The western border of Calimshan is the Sea of Swords, which the Kalishites most often call the Trackless Sea. The shining sea hems in the Pasha's land to the south. The River Agis and the Marching Mountains define the northern boundaries of the Sil Pasha's direct control, while the eastern borders are effectively set by the Alamir Mountains and the western Lake of Steam. Let us take a step back in time. The previous Pasha was a vindictive male, but knowing that his ancestors once ruled an empire as far-ranging as the River Kionthar to the north and the landrise that splits the Shah to the east, the ruler of Calimshan bridled at his country's seeming smallness during the past millennia. Desiring to conquer, but lacking the wherewithal, the Sil Pasha of Calimport continued tentative political maneuvers to expand his borders. A point of contention between Calimshan and its northern neighbor, Tether, was the ruins of Shunach and the lands that once formed the Kingdom of Mir. While he never stationed troops in either area, the Pasha coveted these lands and saw the recent billeting of Tetherian troops there as an affront to what he sees as Calimshan's latent sovereignty over the region. He also casted an opportunistic eye eastward toward troubled Xelta and Mintar. The Kalishite climate is temperate, though it is warmer year-round than Tether or Om due to its more southerly location, the warming effects of the shining sea to the south, and the volcanic activity that affects the Lake of Steam. The average precipitation during the year is about 15 inches of rainfall in the lowlands and 25 inches in the mountains and farther to the east. Most of Calimshan's crops are grown on the floodplains along its rivers, and the rest of the land barely supports grazing. The western half of the country, trapped in the grip of the magical weather patterns of the Calim Desert, rarely sees more than 10 inches of precipitation year-round. Given the combination of the heat and humidity from the bordering oceans, summers are oppressive all across the country. Since the Shining Sea is a relatively calm gulf and the worst of the storms from the trackless sea break up on the Singing Rocks. Calimshan's port cities do not receive the same sea breezes as port cities farther north. Winters are brief and only produce snow in the upper elevations among the Alamir Mountains and Marching Mountains. To most of Calimshan, winter means long periods of rain through the months of Hammer and Alturiak, and spring arrives in Tarsak, with the annual floods that continues through Myrtul. By the end of Kythorn, the heat of summer descends, and it remains until just before the end of Uktar. Most outsiders can hardly distinguish a change in the seasons at all, but to natives, any slight change in humidity or temperature is noticed and is always welcomed after the long summer's heat. The Calim Desert was created by accident as a side effect of the tremendous magic used to imprison the noble genie lords Calim and Memnon into the Calimemnon crystal. Unstable magic plagues this land. Rain rarely falls here, and sandstorms arise suddenly. Deep within the Calim Desert is the Afriti stronghold, Gosva-Kar, the shimmering oasis. Emulating the city of brass, it's a place of scorching splendor. The city's polished stone walls and towers, standing over 100 feet tall, brilliantly reflect the relentless sun. Domed roofs, adorned with intricate metalwork, crown nearly every structure. The city is protected by powerful illusions and Genies' magic. Most travelers pass within a handbreadth of its walls and never know it is there. Calimshan's central steppes are vast stretches of dry land where only the hardiest scrub brush and grasses grow. While natural springs and oases dot the land, locating them can be challenging for anyone unfamiliar with the harsh terrain. In addition to the lack of natural resources, this wild territory contains numerous dangers, including blue dragons and desert-dwelling wolves. Known as the city at the edge of the desert, Keltar is the largest city in Calimshan by area, straddling the Calim River. Waterwheels lining the shore power mills and industry, while irrigation networks support local farming. 3 wide bridges connect the predominantly residential West Keltar with commercial East Keltar. West Keltar is full of 2-story stone and mud brick architecture, while East Keltar is a sprawling complex of animal pens, slaughterhouses, and tanneries separated by low walls and fences. The tanneries are odorous. Some caravanners claim they smell Keltar from a day away, but they are very profitable. Leatherworkers in Keltar are among the best in Faerun. The Sultana's knights ride on Keltari saddles. The city's industries also make it a bustling trade hub for the tribes living in western portion of the steppes, who bring their herds of cattle and goats to the city for slaughter. While Calimshan is well known for its desert, most of the population live in towns and cities along the fertile southern coast. Many travelers to Calimshan are surprised when they visit these cities, where fruit orchards are common and rivers and streams wind between shade trees. The coastal road runs along the west coast from Memnon to Teshburl, then along the southern shore to Calimport. While this route is safer than the tradeway, the paved road is narrow, in disrepair, and frequently bound by the sea and tall cliffs. This makes it difficult to avoid toll stations and tax collectors posted along the road. Even though slavery has now been outlawed, it would be prudent by any delver into history's darker past to cover it in a touch of detail. While I do not condone the practice, it has had several benefits from those who broke those shackles. The enslavement of sentient beings is a practice deemed immoral by most of Faerun's peoples. But Calishites were originally not among them. Regardless of what Calishites see as, at best, the unenlightened and youthfully naive attitudes of outsiders, Calimshan was a fully and unashamedly slavery-supported society. The well-to-do openly enjoy the profits and services gained by trading in living beings. From the older Calishite perspective, it was a way of life that had been in place for millennia. It has always worked for them, and they saw no reason whatsoever to change their ways. At least they believed, as long as slavery remained a profitable business, this vile practice would continue to be part of the darker side of Faerun, and a necessary part of life in Calimshan. Over the past 7 millennia, many have escaped Calimshan's slave system and done what they could to destroy the system. Calimshan's newly restored neighbour to the north, Tether, was founded in large part by escaped slaves from Calimshan, and that nation may one day bring more direct pressure to bear against the slave trade, but not until its own borders and political affairs were secure. Trading in living beings was not limited to Calimshan. Both the Red Wizards and the Zhentarim are major players in the trade to the north, and the Twisted Rune, the Knights of the Shield, and the Rundine all are or have been involved in the trade over the centuries. Of all the major evil power groups, only the Cult of the Dragon has refrained from large-scale participation in slavery, likely due to the cult founder's personal aversion to and alleged experience with the trade. In fact, the whole of Faerun is affected by this cruel market. Calimshan and Thay are the largest destinations, but unfortunates from across the face of Toril can end up in a filthy slave pen in Calimport or Amanthurax. Neighbours and unfortunate natives are not the only ones who need beware. The jungles of Chult, the Shah, Anauroch, the Land of the Lions, and many of Faerun's wildest, most remote locales are slavers' favoured hunting spots. They attack isolated villages or small bands of natives in these areas, rounding them up using force and magic. They make examples of those who will not fetch much of a price and those who resist too long or too strongly, and then take their quarry back to their camp, caravan, or vessel, and the horrible fate beyond. Even civilized lands are not immune to the predations of slavers, however. More than one Dalesman farmer and Sword Coast trader has been taken in the night. Calimport is the oldest, and by many measures the greatest, city in Faerun. A nexus of trade, culture, and sophistication, it has gained even more prominence in recent years with the rise of Sultana Songul and her patronage of the city's inventors and artificers. Citizens of Calimport now rely on mechanical wonders to solve their daily problems, instead of seeking the patronage of capricious genies. Visitors from across Faerun, and indeed from planes and worlds throughout the multiverse, crowd the streets and markets of Calimport. Genies are allowed to enter only if they swear an oath of obedience and non-violence to the Sultana. Inarguably the largest city in Faerun, Calimport is often viewed by outsiders as a tangled canvas of squalor and poverty enlivened by shining examples of opulence and wealth. Like all Calishite cities, it is fortified, but the outer walls are rarely staffed and guarded, and many folk have built additional buildings onto the interior and exterior of the walls, obscuring them and their original purpose as fortifications. In addition, tents, nomads, and caravans constantly camp around the city's outskirts, putting a further layer of humanity between the outside world and Calimport. As the city itself is more than a few miles per side, the task of conquering it or surrounding it with conventional armies is next to impossible, and none of the important city sites are within 200 yards of its closest edge. Wide, rambling, home to a million wonders and mysteries, and a study in contrasts, Calimport is the city of glory to its citizens, but to those assigned less than a citizen's status, this was the city of slaves. Calimport's harbour is vital to the city's prosperity. The colossal seawall protecting the harbour was constructed long ago by Genies. The wall rises 20 feet above sea level and is 30 feet thick at its summit. Its base reaches down more than 200 feet to the harbour bottom and gradually widens to 150 feet thick. Fortified garrison houses line the top of the wall, while gatehouses can close the harbour with heavy steel chains. The harbour handles hundreds of vessels at a time and is divided into several sections. The Armada Ward houses the Sultana's navy, the Dock Ward handles commercial shipping, the Harvest Ward services fishing ships and other local traffic, and the Hook Ward is for shipbuilding. By a decree of the Sultana, ships docking in Calimport are expected to hand over books, scrolls, or other written material. Only personal correspondence and business records are exempt. If the Grand Library doesn't have a copy of the book or scroll, the manuscript is copied and documents are eventually returned. The Grand Library's scribes work with magical assistants, but it's not unusual for ships to be delayed in port as their passengers wait for books to be returned. The wealthiest and most affluent Calishites own luxurious homes and villas in the Palace Ward. Several nations and city-states maintain embassies here under the watchful eye of the Dragon Guard, the Sultana's elite personal guard of dragonborn warriors. Taverns and bathhouses in the Palace Ward serve as gathering spots for the city's elite, while theatres provide entertainment. Important visitors and mercenaries hired to protect nobles stay in the ward's luxurious inns. City servants and mechanical wonders sweep the streets clean from the dust that blows in from the Calim Desert. The Palace Primordial stands among the ward's most opulent buildings. This magnificent structure hosts visiting genies and their retinue. Its chambers have been magically altered to suit the preferences of genies of all sorts, but the Sultana's spies have allegedly infiltrated the palace staff. The Sultana's palace complex sits high atop the mesa at the heart of the Palace Ward, above all but the Hill Ward. Luxurious gardens surround the enormous, white-domed palace, which is visible from anywhere in the city. Ambassadors from the Lord's Alliance and Purple Dragon Knights have permanent quarters in the complex. In an emergency, the palace can be sealed off from the rest of the city and further protected by layers of magical wards. Wells and gardens provide food and water. The palace and its gardens are well protected by the Dragon Guard. The Wizard Ward is the seat of the Guild Arcane, Calimport's Mages Guild. Towers, academies, shops, libraries, and homes line the ward's narrow, meandering alleyways. Mechanical wonders clean the streets and run errands, while strange magic can be seen in windows and on rooftops. The Plaza of Oranges, a long, wide park suitable for quiet relaxation and the occasional arcane duel, fills the north end of the ward. This ward includes a Thayan enclave staffed by red wizards and their guards. While many Calishites know a spell or two, any serious practitioner of arcane magic wishing to conduct business in the city must join the Guild Arcane and pay annual dues. This includes students and faculty at the ward's many magical academies. The Guild sets the price for arcane services and magical items and ensures all transactions are carried out safely and according to the law. Calimshan does hold your attention, and if I may be so plain, it does deserve that semblance of respect. For trying to determine the exact truth of the events of the ancient past is often as accurate as predicting the future. You can never be totally certain of the facts. You're never quite sure what you'll find. And in the immediate scope of things, few people truly care enough to reward or even compliment you for your results, let alone the degree of effort required to obtain them. To be my own master, such a thing would be greater than all the magic and all the treasures in all the world.